UCLA. They had a head coaching vacancy once Chip left for Columbus, and there was a lot of candidates in the mix for this job. This one I was very interested to see who they went and hired, because there's a lot of different directions that UCLA could have gone here, and there's so many candidates that I saw that had their names floated out there. PJ Fleck, one of them, I thought was the most interesting. Like, would he leave Minnesota for UCLA? How much would have an upgrade would that have been? I don't know. That's debatable. But anyways, who did UCLA end up getting? They went and hired DeShaun Foster, the new head coach of the Bruins. He was the former running backs coach for UCLA. And this guy is UCLA through and through. That's, of course, his alma mater. He played at UCLA as a running back from 1998 through 2001. He had a solid career in the NFL with the Carolina Panthers and then finished with the Niners. Once he left the NFL, a few years later, about a decade ago, he started getting into coaching. He was a grad assistant at UCLA for a couple of years back in 2014, then had a brief stint at Texas Tech as the running backs coach under Cliff Kingsbury. Had Mahomes on his team as his quarterback, even though he was the running backs coach. But hey, I mean, it's a pretty good quarterback to have there for your RBs in front of you. And then he went back to UCLA, and then since then he's been the running backs coach for the past 7 years. So when this hire was made, I think a lot of people were like, it doesn't really seem all that inspiring. You promoted a guy internally, doesn't have any coordinator experience, doesn't have any head coach experience. This is very much a huge risk, I'd say, by UCLA because of the lack of head coaching experience. But he's a guy that definitely fills the voids that Chip Kelly left at UCLA. He's a guy that values recruiting. He's a good players coach. A lot of the players respect him. Apparently, the players were like ecstatic when they made this hire. So he's a good leader. He's a good connector in the locker room. So he's a good players coach. Question is, can he get the NIL that UCLA needs? Because rumors are that UCLA is definitely struggling in the NIL department right now. And one of the other hurdles that they have is the fan buy-in. I mean, it's UCLA. There's a lot of other things that people can do out in Los Angeles right now, and UCLA football isn't one of their top priorities, unfortunately. That's how it shouldn't be. But he's got to get butts in the seats, and he's got to get fan buy-in. He's got to get booster buy-in. He's got to get NIL dollars flowing. He's got the players buy-in. And can he run a program? So, with all that being said, what are your thoughts on DeShaun Foster to UCLA?
I see the potential for good upside, but I think it's more risky. If I had to do like a risk-benefit analysis, I would say the risk of failure is probably greater than the chance of benefit or fruition. And that's more so what you pointed out. He doesn't really have any experience as even a coordinator. And now you're going to have him as a whole head coach of a university. Now, the bright side of this is he is an alum. So he's UCLA through and through, the way you mentioned. So you have someone there who's going to fight for your program, who's going to put up with your boosters, who's going to, go to your booster's house, drive up there, clean his car for him, do whatever he has to do to get that booster to donate to UCLA and keep the program growing and going. And I think getting a younger guy who has a little bit of pedigree at 30,000 college yards, he played in the NFL for a little while. I mean, that's something that I think speaks in recruiting. He could be more personable with the kids, say, look, I've been through it. And I think he's only in his 30s. He's a pretty young guy. So DeShaun Foster, potential from the rah-rah, Kyle Whittingham, Mike Gundy, home alum kind of background, if he's able to accomplish that in building a program. But the red flags are just, he's a head coach without any coordinating experience or anything like that. He doesn't know how to manage a program. I'm sure he's been around it, but he's never been the man in charge. And that to me is concerning. And that's why I think that it's more likely that this move does not work out than this move does work out. So I will say, if it does work out, it's not going to be immediate for a guy like this. There are going to be growing pains along the way. He's got to figure out how to be a head coach, build a program, do all these things. But maybe he can boost the NIL presence in UCLA. Maybe he can bring that swag. Maybe that's what they're looking for. And that's why I see that potential in this. But without me going in circles and babbling, I'm going to give a grade. And my grade for this is a C-. I'm going to go C- because I think there is a lot of inherent risk in this hire, but there is a chance chance that this works out for them in the future. Although I think if it does work out, it won't be in the next 2 or 3 years. It'll be more on like a second contract kind of thing. Progressive improvement.
I'm pretty much in lockstep with you there. My grade is going to be a C. Just flat C. And for the exact same reasons that you said, I kind of thought of this hire and I was like, this kind of seems very similar to what Syracuse did with Fran Brown, except this is more of like an internal hire, whereas Fran Brown was an outside hire for Syracuse. But a guy that definitely is better at recruiting, as a player's coach, a guy that the players respect, and a guy that's got good leadership skills, but that hasn't ran a program, hasn't even called plays. Now, I thought about this and I was like, well, I went back and looked at Jeff Lebby to Mississippi State as like, again, a comparison. Jeff Lebby, I gave a B+, but that was because at least he was a coordinator and ran an offense, and he'll be actually running something that is proven to be good, that he has proven to do well at Mississippi State, whereas Fran Brown, DeShaun Foster, they haven't ran anything. They have not ran anything.
Not even been a coordinator, and that's like a red flag to me.
Yes, exactly. It's a huge risk. It really is. And this is another example of the program sort of making the hire based off of what the previous coach did not do well at. And we see this all the time. What did Chip Kelly not do well at? He did not do well at recruiting. He didn't care about recruiting, and he didn't really connect with the players, and he didn't give a crap about NIL and all that stuff. Well, he gave a crap about NIL, but he didn't care about any of that stuff or getting fans to buy in. DeShaun Foster, he's an alum. He cares about UCLA. He connects with the players. He's younger. He's 44, by the way. And he's a great recruiter and a good players coach. So he's all the things that Chip Kelly was not. So pretty much polar opposites here. So it's one of those hires. I will say DeShaun Foster, man, he's got a tough road ahead of him at UCLA, man. Have you seen the win total on FanDuel? Right now, it's only 5.5.
Oof.
And I looked at their schedule. You look at their schedule for next year. They're non-con.
They got to go. They're 5.5 on win total.
They got to open the year at Hawaii, which again, it's Hawaii. You should win, but you still got to go at Hawaii, and then they got to go at LSU. And then they got Fresno State as their non-con.
It's a little tough there, yeah.
And then
Fresno's
in Big Ten play, they got Oregon, they got to go at Penn State, at Nebraska, Iowa, at Washington, and then they host USC.
It's tough.
It is tough. And then
tough schedule.
Their flip games are like at Rutgers, and then home versus Minnesota, home versus Indiana. I mean, there's
traveling, man. Oof.
There's not a whole lot of games where I'm looking at that and I'm saying, yeah, those are definitely like surefire wins. It's going to be, it might be a tough year one for DeShaun Foster, but you're going into the new Big Ten. The competition is going to step up. So by default, I mean, you got a lot of things working against you, but yeah, man, I'm very interested to see how this one goes. Contrary to Fran Brown, I gave that one a C-. I gave this a C instead of a C- because at least this one is internal, and at least the guy cares about UCLA, and like you said, there is that chance there that he could be a UCLA lifer. So that's why I bumped it up from a C- to a C. Small margins there, but I have rationale for everything. It's a well thought through grade, but yeah, I mean, this one's inherently risky, but I'd like to see it. I'd like to see this one play out well, though. I mean, we gotta see the LA schools get fans in the seats, man. When those schools are going, it's I think college football is a little bit more fun, but we'll see.